All right, NYB, thank you for coming back to us for episode number 221, Entrepreneurship Real Estate Trending News. There's no business like minding your own. Recording this on Monday, November the 16th of 2020. We are now officially halfway through November. We're roughly about 45 days left in 2020. I know that gets resounding applause from some of you that are looking to get out of 2020 and get to 2021. I hate to burst your bubble, but 2021 is going to be a pickle too. Hopefully not to the same extent that 2020 has been for many. So I say that facetiously, but just know that January 1st, all our problems won't go away because the calendar turns, right? And we still have an opportunity to be just a little bit better for ourselves, for our families, and for our communities. Subscribe to the podcast, 5-star, 5-star. Wherever you get your pods, that helps us continue to grow the NYB community. I'm excited for today's guest who is joining us. Just a tremendous background. She's the global expert on purpose-driven business. She's the best-selling author of Selling with Noble Purpose, How to Drive Revenue and Do Work That Makes You Proud. And she's the founder of McLeod More. You can go to McLeodmore.com. She's the founder of McLeod More since 2001. And so we got a myriad of subjects we want to touch on this morning, but Lisa McLeod joins us. Yeah, for those that are familiar.
Yeah, thank you. To be with you, Ron.
Yeah, so all the applause. Yeah. So, Lisa, let's jump right in because I really appreciate you taking time here on a Monday morning of all times to join us here and speak to our little audience here at the MYB podcast. Let's jump in. So tell us a little bit about yourself. You have a very distinct background that I think will help our listeners, those that are grooming or grooming children or that sort of thing. And so share with us kind of your journey to where you are today.
Well, on paper, if you read the bio, it looks really linear, but everyone knows it never works that way. In real life, it never works that way. Yeah. So where I am today, which is I'm in my 50s, is really the culmination.
You're in your 50s? No way.
Am.
All right, MYB, are you watching this? We might have to challenge. We have to do a fact check on Lisa.
Well, you know what? Way. Since the pandemic, I've been getting a good night's sleep. So which I know sounds crazy, but I'm not traveling, so it makes a big difference. So I do want to say something here. I'll tell you about my background, but I want to jump on something that you said in the opener, where you said, everyone will be happy to bid 2020 adieu. But the good thing about 2021 is, what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
If we'd have sat here in 2019 and I'd said, everything's going to shut down, we're going to have this pandemic, blah, 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 we're going to have race riots in the streets, we're going to have political unrest, you would have gone, huh?
Right.
But now we know. That's not to say there won't be something unexpected, but I know we have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to you. And I think the thing is, instead of waiting for this to be over, now is the time. Now is the time to step into who you want to be and what you want your business to be. So my journey is in the result of two congruent journeys. And one was my journey in sales and in business. And the other was, quite candidly, a spiritual journey. An emotional journey around looking for meaning in life, looking for to be something more than just myself and going to work and making money. And so those two finally came together for me in the last decade when the research revealed that in business, having a purpose bigger than money and truly wanting to make a difference actually creates a better company than if you're focused on the money.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, God, that's really profound. I haven't thought about it that way. So as you're coming up, then I mean, there's so many different ways I could take this. As you're coming up, then Lisa, how tell me about that organizational culture. When did you? I guess at what point in your career did you kind of either have groomed, or did you already kind of naturally have, this thought of understanding how organizations work, how leadership works and functions?
Upon reflection, I always had that thought. I didn't even know
Yeah.
that was a thing. So I look back, when you're older, you can look back and, I'm not that old, but as you mature,
Right.
you can look back on situations and see the underpinnings of where you were meant to go. And so one of the things that I look back on that's really obvious to me now is even when I was a kid, even when I was in high school, I
Yeah.
was the one, even though I was very talkative, I was the one sort of watching the undercurrent of things and
Mm.
seeing how things went. And
Yeah.
I also know you have a lot of women listeners, and
Yes.
women are particularly, women's intuition has been proven. And if
For
you've
my
ever,
wife too.
yeah, you'll know this is true if you've ever gone to a party with your wife. This happened with my husband and I. We went to this party and we were coming home and we were talking about this couple that he worked with, the
Yeah.
guy. And I said, "Oh, well, they're doing terrible. They're going to get divorced." And he's like, "What are you talking about? They were fine." I go, "Nope, there's something under there. I saw it at this party." So that was always who I was.
Yeah.
And I was that way socially. And so my journey through corporate, so my early job is I was in sales for Procter Gamble, which is
Yeah.
about as corporate as you can get.
Oh, of
And I
course.
became a sales trainer and a sales manager there. And it was a very straightforward sales job in the
Mm.
very practical sense. You had a number, you had a sales team, you got to hit this number, we've got to find products. But what I see upon reflection, what was always more interesting to me was that emotional level that's going on underneath, which is
Yes.
probably what led me into the sales training business, led me into consulting, because I was always sort of trying to look upstream at what's
Sure.
driving these things. And so I worked for this consulting firm, and people often ask, "Well, what was your dream when you started your own business? What was your, how did you decide?" And I am really honest about this. There were two things that propelled me to start my own business. I had a baby and I worked for a jerk. And that was it, plain and simple. And
Those two things.
I was a VP of sales
Yes.
and had made big money, had a big number, took off on maternity leave, and realized my mother died just before I went on maternity leave. And it
Oh,
was really a
yeah.
reset for me. She died young. And I realized I'm not going to go back to work. Like, this is literally making money for the man, like not
Yes.
metaphorically, like
No,
literally.
literally,
This
right.
person who I don't like, who I don't think likes me very much, who doesn't understand our business, all he wants is for me to come back to work and put numbers on the board. And I looked at the baby and I looked at him and I thought, I'm not going to leave the future president of the United States with a nanny 10 hours a day to go do this for this guy. And
Right.
so I said, well, I'm just going to have to go to work for myself. That's my only choice.
Yeah.
So that's how I
Absolutely.
started.
Yeah. And so then Lisa, you're right. We have a nice size female listenership. And I think there are a lot that are clapping their hands and amen. And at this point, so you felt comfortable, you and your husband at that point, being able to make that decision. I know, there are a lot of people that are listening to this that, would like to be able to do that, but may not feel, or maybe at the time felt as comfortable. What really kind of gave you that comfort to be able to go out and take that risk, knowing that you're a new mother. You're like you mentioned, you're working for a jerk, but I think a lot of people listening to this, Lisa, and this, they kind of tolerate the jerk and tolerate
Mhm,
all the issues
mhm.
because they like the stability of the paycheck, right?
Yeah.
The stability of the benefits, right? The knowledge that I'll get paid every other Friday, as long as I do, what I need to be able to do, right? I know I'll get paid, but you don't have that, obviously when you first launch your business. So what kind of gave you guys that comfort?
Well, I want to tell you, this is a two-parter as well. So when
Yeah,
I first started my business, I was in a place of privilege. My husband had a job and my husband had
sure.
benefits. So there's not a lot more I need to say about that. He made
Sure.
enough
That's
money to pay
understood.
the mortgage. So it was a risk giving up my VP of sales job, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to feed my family.
Yes.
But flash forward, my husband, a decade later, left his corporate job
Yeah.
and bought a business and bought it at the exact worst time. We bought it together. This is a series of very poor decisions in an unforgiving economy during the recession led to us having to take a bankruptcy. And the reason I'm sharing this is the book, Selling with Noble Purpose. It's the second edition of the book, but the first edition was basically how I sold my way out of bankruptcy.
Wow.
And I think that's probably the most relevant thing to your listeners is with very little financial safety net. My husband's lost his business. It's the middle of the recession. My consulting business has gone down. I had a decent consulting business, but in trying to help him save his business, I diverted from that. And it's also the recession. And I have 2 kids, and one's about to go to college, and a big house payment.
Wow.
So that's when actually Selling with Noble Purpose was born. And it came out of a study that I did for a biotech company about what differentiated their top salespeople.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as you're going through that, and I want to get to how you rebounded and things like that from the bankruptcy, but I appreciate your transparency and sharing that, Lisa, because that's really the essence of this podcast, right? Is to be able to, share that, so people don't feel like they're on an island. Oftentimes, and this is nothing against any other podcast, but oftentimes, you're talking with guests and we only talk about the highlights, right? We talk about the highlight reel. But many people have struggled, whether it's, during this time or even before the pandemic hit, and, making that choice is not easy. And oftentimes people feel like, they're on an island when they go through tough times. And so, no, you and your family are no stranger to tough times, obviously, but you've been able to rebound. How did you and your husband do that? You're helping him with his business, and like you say, the most challenging of times that we all remember. What were some of those early conversations like, or things that you guys obviously banded together, to rebound, on a united front?
Mostly.
I try to describe it to the T.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So we had this business that went belly up. It was a small manufacturing company, was in the sign business, and made like signs like the Wendy's sign or the Gap sign. Well, when we hit the recession, that just dried up. There was too much debt on the business. We threw good money after bad for a long time. So all you entrepreneurs know, there is a place when giving up is the smartest thing you can do.
Sure.
So that business went belly up. We owed money to the IRS. We'd lost all our personal savings. That's when it got hard. Watching it circle the drain was difficult. The finality of it was really hard. And so right now, I work with a number of entrepreneurs, but I also work with big sales organizations.
Sure.
And those organizations, the people within them whose job depends on selling stuff, they're feeling this sense of panic.
Absolutely.
Right. They are feeling it. And so I'll tell you about, in terms of how do you rally? What do you do? What happened for me was there was a tipping point. So I was doing a project. So I had my own business. I got hired by this biotech company to do this project where we wanted to identify what differentiated the top sales performers. And this is going to be relevant for every entrepreneur needs to know what came out of this study. So we went out in the field, we worked with these salespeople. We were trying to figure out what's that secret sauce that makes some people top sellers. What's the secret sauce? And it was really interesting because we did it as a blind study. And I told you earlier, I was always the one to kind of look underneath things and figure out like what's going on underneath. So in the study, we looked at how many sales calls did they make? What did they talk about? What was their background? All those things on the surface that you look for, all in search of what's the magic elixir that makes these people, thinking that we could scale it. If we find out what makes the top performers.
Sure.
We're near the end of the study, and I was with a representative in Phoenix, Arizona. And I asked her, what do you think about when you go on sales calls? What's in your head? And she said, well, I always think about this one patient. She said, I was standing in the doctor's office. This little old lady came up to me, tapped me on the shoulder and said, thank you. thank you for giving me my life back. Because she could see my name tag was for the drug company.
Sure.
And she said, prior to taking this drug, I couldn't go anywhere. Now I can go visit my grandkids.
Yeah.
I can get on a plane. And she said, so thank you for giving me my life back. And this sales representative is telling me this really emotional story. And she said, that's my purpose. And this was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I got to thinking about it. And I thought about the whole plane ride home. I thought, is this the thing, this sense of purpose, this wanting to make a difference? Is that the thing we're looking for? So I went back through all the other interviews and I found a couple of other salespeople. I found 5 in total that alluded to this sense. One said, my dad was a doctor. It's a harder job than people realize. I just want to help the doctor. And at the end of the study, the company said, well, who do you think our top representatives are? I said, I think it's these 5. And I was 100% right. And that was the moment. And the one representative who talked about the grandmother was the #1 rep in the country for 3 years in a row. And so that was the moment when I saw that if you think about an organization, there's a lot of research since in the 10 years. This was one of the first studies on it, but there have been multiple ones since. If you think about an organization, you've got the practical, factual levels. You got to get your systems and processes in place. You got to get all that right. And that will make you a good organization. But to truly be exceptional, you have to take it to another level. And the organizations that have a purpose bigger than money, that really want to make a difference to their customers, outperform the market by over 350%. Is what the data now tells us. So if you're an entrepreneur, and you're thinking a couple things, oh, how am I going to scale? Or if you're thinking, how am I going to make the leap? I don't know what I'm doing. You should know that your source of competitive differentiation is your deep-seated purpose, what I call your noble purpose that you have in your heart that almost every entrepreneur has, that you want to make a difference to your customers.
Yes, absolutely.
And your job as an entrepreneur is to codify and scale that. And what happens in so many organizations is they start that way, but then the person loses it, not because the individual doesn't care, but because they scaled it and it just became time to make the donuts, every day.
Right. Right. That's very true. That's a good way to put it too. And I'm laughing because I've seen that, in my banking walk and particularly as I was able to scale my career, right, Lisa, into, the C-suite, you start to see how the sausage is made, so to speak. And you're right that oftentimes leaders can lose their way because you get caught up in the mundane kind of day-to-day functions of the business. And, and you see this even with entrepreneurs in the small business realm, you lose that, right? You lose that sense of soul within the business sometimes because you get caught up in the transactional pieces and you get caught up in the shiny toy and you get caught up in the noise of the, climate around you and that sort of thing. This is very intriguing for me. Let's tie that into today with the pandemic. Right. And so what are you seeing with business owners as the pandemic came? So you talked earlier about, being able to plan for 2021 versus 2020. And you're exactly right. If you and I had sat down to strategically plan January 1st of this year, and one of us said, you know what? I really feel strong that there's going to be political unrest, all the things that you talked about. Yeah. There's going to be a worldwide pandemic. There's going to be, social injustice towards, Black and brown people. There's going to be, all these kind of things are going to bubble up and come to a head, right? Neither one of us would have thought the other one was serious about that, but then here we are. So what are you seeing with business owners, Lisa, as the pandemic came on, and then now that we're kind of seasoned a little bit into it, and we're seeing cases rise, and I think as you go through the holidays, you'll start seeing even a little bit more heightened frustration. You and I were talking off camera about some of the political pieces that could fall as it relates to the fourth or fifth president and the president-elect and that sort of thing. Anyway, with all of that, what do you see with business owners in this environment compared to the environment pre-pandemic?
Well, one of the things we saw happen during the pandemic, I'll give you an example, a bank that we work with, and they're very public about this. They're in Selling with Noble Purpose, their story, and they are Atlantic Capital Bank out of Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
And they are a commercial bank. And we did work with them prior to the pandemic. We'd worked with them for about a year on their purpose.
Yeah.
And most banks, their purpose is to make money. Atlantic Capital Bank said, our purpose is we fuel prosperity.
Sure.
And the reason that this is important is if you have tethered yourself, your organization's ethos, your individual people in your organization's self-esteem, including the owner, if you've tethered all of that to a number, you're not going to have a compelling narrative to sustain you during a difficult time. And so what I watched this bank that we worked with and another bank that we had 2 weeks prior to the pandemic had an introductory conversation with. So we didn't start a project. I watched the two of them go through the pandemic, and I watched Atlantic Capital Bank come out stronger. Their people were said, okay, our purpose is to fuel prosperity. What's going on with our clients and how do we do that now? They were so focused on making a difference to their clients. It did three things. Number one, it gave their people a reason to get out of bed in the morning because we're here to make a difference to our clients. Human beings are at their best when they know someone's counting on them. The second thing it did was that behavior that it instilled in their people gave them competitive differentiation in the market. All of their customers saw them behaving differently. And the third thing it did was they made more money because so at the end of the year, they've now been voted the best place to work. They've made more money. And that's not to say that their people aren't suffering from Zoom fatigue. Their people are totally suffering from Zoom fatigue. Their people are frustrated because they've got a 10-year-old going, Mom, I can't get on my Zoom call. My They have all the same things that everybody else is facing, but they're tethered to a North Star bigger than themselves. And what I saw with this other bank is nice people, great people. You know, we were all set to do a project with them, but we had not instilled that sense of purpose in the organization. Nor have we connected the dots of people's jobs. So everything became transactional. So the good news is the best time to plant a tree, Chinese proverb, 20 years ago, second best time today. So
right.
We're all working with that other bank. In 6 months from now, I'll be telling you a different story.
Right.
But what we're seeing is everything in your business is going to pull you to the transactional. Everything is going to pull you to the numbers. Everything is going to pull you to just getting through the day and hitting your targets. If you let that happen, if you make that your only ethos, you are going to wind up with employees who are disengaged, and they won't quit during a pandemic, but they will be worse. They will quit and stay. So they'll quit caring, but they'll keep working for you.
Right.
The other thing that will happen is your customers will feel it. And so now is the time, whether it's just you as an entrepreneur, you need a purpose bigger than money, or it's your whole team. Now is the time to codify that purpose. And what we're seeing now, when we look at, we're not going to be done. I was talking to the folks at Atlantic Capital Bank, and they had taken bets on when we'd be going back. And one guy, a guy named Kurt Schreiner, he's VP of sales. He said, I had the latest time. He said, I thought we'd be back by my birthday in August. Well, guess what? We're not. And so when you look forward, we have two things going on. We have employees asking, who am I and why am I here? Like an existential crisis. Like, why am I here? Why am I waking up every day? And we have customers asking, are you here to help me? Or are you just trying to close me? And if you can't get in front of those two things and get your business to be something more than just transactional and have clarity of purpose, you're going to have customers that treat you like just a transaction. Your margins are going to go down. The retention rate's going to go down. All your business is going to go up for bid every year. And you're also going to have employees that treat the job just like a paycheck. So as a leader, you got to get out in front of that.
Yep, absolutely. And like you said, that applies at all levels of business. And, many of us have seen that in play, and certainly during this pandemic, I think you're exactly right, Lisa, that the differentiating factor for many, and I put my consumer hat on, and then I put my, business hat on, and those that have done, well, not just survived the pandemic, but, have even been able to thrive through it, are those that have adaptability. They're able to quickly pivot. And they personify the culture of what you said, which is, the passion. What's the mission behind it? So they become mission. They make sure that the culture is mission based, so that, like you say, people thrive when they're being counted on, and they have a sense of purpose. Right.
Yeah.
This means something. Right.
It's crucial.
Yeah, exactly. And so you're right that, great organizations embody that. And so, like you say, it goes to the passion. And it's interesting for you in saying that from someone that's got an extensive sales background, because oftentimes in sales is very transactional, right? And it's easy to get sucked into the transaction of a sale. It's easy to get caught up into the sales goals and the KPIs and the blah, 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 up and down the spreadsheet. Right. But the spreadsheet has no soul. Right. It can tell a truth, and it can help solidify. It doesn't tell a story on its own. It can help solidify a story, but it's soulless. Right. Without the passion, and the purpose behind it. And a lot of, like, you're right, a lot of organizations and even small business owners, you get caught up into, like you say, the numbers driving everything. And that's such a great best practice that you share, Lisa, for all of us. I'm taking notes on that myself, because I always want to make sure that I check that in my business, that I don't become so rigid and so, caught up in, the next sale, and, get the bag and the next sale. And, that I make sure that I have, purpose, and make sure that I think back and check, why am I doing this? Is this just to support a lifestyle? Is it just to keep the mortgage company happy, or to be able to get nice things for my kids and wife? What is this? Right. And keeping that in mind, I think, organizations that do that tend to thrive. And like you say, the statistics support that in the studies. But I think that's real for all of us as we go through the rest of this year and go into 2021 is, embody that sense of purpose, and then cascade that, through your organization. If you've got employees, or if you're the only employee, make sure that's part of your organizational culture, even if it's just you.
Yeah. And your purpose is defined as how you make a difference to your customers. And so one of the things that I want people to leave with is, I'll use an example. If parents have had a hard time during the pandemic.
Yes.
And if prior to the pandemic, you defined your parenting as your ability to get the meal on the table, get them to school, get them home from school, all the logistics.
Right.
You're going to come untethered.
Yes.
But if you define your parenting as, I'm creating future leaders, it puts a completely different lens on things.
Wow.
Selling with noble purpose is not about pleasing customers. It's about improving customers. And when you have clarity around how you make a difference to your customers, it acts as an organizational North Star that, just like parenting, helps you make decisions large and small.
Yeah.
And so the idea that you have a purpose bigger than money, the data could not be more clear. And you talk about wanting to pay the mortgage and do the nice things for your kids. Humans are complex. We've got lots of motives.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you can have absolute clarity about how you make a difference to customers, and that's your noble purpose, and use that as the North Star strategically and tactically in your organization, the data tells us you will close more business, you will close stickier business, you will close higher margin business, and you will have customer advocates, because brand reputations are being won and lost right now based on perceived intent.
Yes, absolutely. Lisa, tell us about the book. What can we expect? Where can we find it? Obviously, because I want to make sure MYB, we go out and support Lisa by purchasing the book. And I know the second edition is coming out here at some point in
It's just out.
It's just out. Okay. Oh, breaking news. There you go.
So I want to tell you what you can do as an entrepreneur. So go to sellingwithnoblepurpose.com, and we have an assessment, and it's free. And you can take a look at that, and it will assess your words, your infrastructure. It's really quick, but it'll tell you how purpose-driven you and your organization are, and where you need to work on. And so one of the things that we did in Selling with Noble Purpose, the book, was I knew who I was writing for. And that's the ADD person who doesn't have a lot of time. So I wrote the chapters so you can just pick 2 that you like and read them. And one of my clients, who's a VP of sales, said, my favorite part of this book is the appendix.
Yeah.
Because it gives you all the tips and just lists them all. And if you like it, you can go back and read the chapter. If you don't, you can just do the tip.
Right.
So I've never been complimented on an appendix before.
Yeah.
But we did get a lot of great feedback on that.
And that's such a great example, Lisa, of knowing your audience, right? And tailoring your offering to your audience. And I think that's another great best practice, with how you structure the book with, that reader, that targeted reader in mind. I think that's tremendous. And
there's a chapter in there for entrepreneurs on how to name and claim your purpose. And it's short and it's easy, and it's got a couple questions you can ask yourself if it's just you, or if you got a team of 2 or 3, or if you're thinking about starting something. I've coached a lot of startups, and clarity of purpose at the beginning is crucial.
Yes, absolutely it is, without question. Lisa, how can, those that are listening that are intrigued, which I'm sure they are, how can they connect with you and your team? And what, tell us about the type of businesses that you're working with. Obviously, you've worked with some major players, across a myriad of industries, but, tell us about the, a little bit of the DNA of your, targeted customer and how people can get in touch with you guys.
So I really spending my time on 3 things now. I'm working with leaders and executive teams of sales-driven companies, because the need to drive revenue now is huge. Yeah. The second thing that I'm doing is I'm doing a lot of virtual programs where people will have a sales kickoff meeting. And so we've got like 60 and 90-minute programs that we're doing virtually for folks. And then the third thing I'm doing is I am posting a ton of content all over the place. I write for Forbes. I've done a couple pieces for Harvard Business Review, but I also post a lot on LinkedIn, and it's free. So if you're an entrepreneur listening to this, follow me on LinkedIn and sign up for the Work on Purpose newsletter. And it's free. It comes every single week. So I think those are really the 3 things that I'm spending my time on now. Is my focus is helping people find clarity of purpose and use it to drive revenue and emotional engagement.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely tremendous. And so sellingwithnoblepurpose.com is where they can go, Lisa, to do the assessment and that sort of thing. Yeah. So NYB, make sure you do that, sellingwithnoblepurpose.com. When you get done listening, don't do anything else before you go to sellingwithnoblepurpose.com. If the baby's crying, let them come in and join in with you on the assessment.
You know what?
I kid.
I wrote my first book from 11 at night until 2 in the morning with a baby in the next room.
Wow.
You can do this.
You can do it. Right. Yep. So if Lisa can do that, those of you that certainly don't have babies in the next room, you can definitely do that too. Sellingwithnoblepurpose.com. Let's make sure we do that, as well as go to McLeodmore.com. To learn more about the organization. Connect with Lisa on LinkedIn, as you mentioned, and like we've said, entrepreneurs, you got to be at LinkedIn. Depending on your business, you may like to scroll Instagram and Facebook and that sort of thing, but don't leave opportunity on the table by sleeping on LinkedIn. It's not just about your resume and getting a job. It's a great place to connect with your target audience for your business as well. And so
the content on LinkedIn is fabulous. I will tell you, that's where we're putting our best stuff every week. And that's where I see the articles and things that'll just shape your brain as an entrepreneur. They're on LinkedIn.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So go to LinkedIn, connect with Lisa McLeod, our guest today on episode 221 of the Minding Your Business podcast. Lisa, this has been a tremendous dialogue. I definitely got to have you back because we got so much more to talk about. As you were talking, you need to be the new Alexa. Like they need to find a way to just make the Alexa so that, so we just say, hey, Lisa, tell me what I should be doing today. And you just chime in and say, well, get off your butt and go get it done,
I'll work on that. I'm working on a mobile platform for selling with Noble Purpose. My next will be Lisa in your ear.
Yeah, that's what you need and it needs to be for entrepreneurs. So like if you buy a phone, you need to be able to get the app and just have you replace Alexa. You get to like choose Alexa or Lisa, right? And then you're the alarm, you're everything. Like, you have a meeting, you dummy, hurry up.
I would never say you have a meeting, you dummy. I would say,
I know.
rise and shine and go to your meeting with Noble Purpose. You got this.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, Lisa, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking time with us today. Best wishes to you personally and professionally. And again, we definitely have to have you back here in the near future, as of course you do more things. You're writing more books. You have more content. We want to be able to have you back and share with our audience, because this has been tremendous. And I think we've all learned a lot today.
Thanks.
All right. Definitely. Lisa McLeod was our guest today, MYB. Just tremendous professional. And that's what I like to be able to bring you guys, and hope that you can appreciate, her sharing their transparent story and that sort of thing. That's tremendous. And, those things, can help us all. And so I hope that, as always, you take something from this MYB and apply it to your life. When you get done listening, you can apply something and be, again, just a little bit better with yourself, a little bit better with your family, and a little bit better with your community. And if we could all do that and keep that in mind when we engage each other, we can make this place just a little bit better, pandemic or not. And we'll get through this all together, but we have to move with a sense of purpose. And so go back to your organization and make sure and have that critical conversation with yourself and your leaders about what type of culture are you really driving, right? And what's motivating us. Okay. Don't forget champronbrooks.com. Oh yeah, I've got the webinar coming up. So real estate investing, I'll be teaching everything that I do in terms of getting involved in real estate investing. Thank you for all those that have signed up over the weekend. It was a little overwhelming keeping up with all the people registering, but it was tremendous. So I had a tremendous response to that. So Sunday, December the 27th at 4 p.m. Central Time, you'll join me and we're going to go through it in 1 hour. I'm going to share everything that I do, how you get involved. I'm going to debunk the myth of no cash, no credit, because that's a myth, to say the least. You have to have both. There's no business you're going to get into where you just go show up with nothing and make a bunch of money and drive your purpose, right? You have to bring something to the table. So I'm going to debunk all the YouTube folks that are running around flashing checks and saying, oh, I did this with no cash and no way. Okay. Be careful. So we're going to debunk that. I'm going to show you how you can do that. Legal, moral, ethically, of course, as always. And, how you can get involved. So join me and register. It's free. And go to champronbrooks.com to be able to do just that. Listen, go be great again for yourself, for your family, and for your community. And we'll see you guys next time. Take care.